Okay. So really happy to be here today and chatting with you, Kate. Kate Daubney is Director of the Careers Group, and you're currently establishing the new Centre of Excellence for Careers and Employability at the University of London. She's the author of Careers Education to Demystify Employability, and I'm really looking forward to chatting with you about the book today. As Julia Yates has said, it's a must-buy book for anyone in the careers world. So I feel like that's a really nice note for us to start on.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you give a 60-second summary of the book to start us off?
Of course. So I wrote this book, Careers Education to Demystify Employability, because I wanted to draw on the really well-resourced, quite well-tested practice that goes on in higher education, careers and employability support for students, to create some new approaches for careers leaders and teachers and careers professionals to use in schools and colleges with pre-18 learners. It was really important to me when I was writing the book to find some new ways to recognise, I think, what are some very key challenges that careers professionals and teachers have to face in supporting pre-18 learners. Particularly, I think, in terms of making sure that the interventions that are being offered to those learners are actually getting the impact that learners need for where those learners are on their career journey. And I also wanted to say something new and quite practical about the value of qualifications that our learners are studying at school and at college for their future career choices, because I think there's a bit of a gap there. I know that everybody working in the profession is feeling really stretched, particularly because of the pandemic. So I was also really keen to make sure that I suggested really practical things that people could do to get more value out of what those careers professionals and teachers are already doing in schools and colleges. You're working so hard, so can we get some more value out of what you're already doing? And I think even the most complex and well-defined careers program can miss the point or not get impact if it's not getting the right activity to learners given their career readiness, or actually quite often their lack of career readiness for entering the next stage of their future. So I wrote the book to try to put some context around every careers program that I know is out there in our schools and colleges and provide some new approaches to solving some pretty well-established problems.
No, I definitely agree that the book's really practical, and I feel like throughout you're giving so many great examples and useful resources for teachers. So was there anything that surprised you when you were writing the book? As you said, it's definitely an unusual time to be writing, and teachers are really stretched, so it must have been a bit different.
Yeah, I planned the book actually before the pandemic started, and I started writing it just before UK lockdown began in the spring of 2020. So in a way, I was quite surprised by the conversations I was having with myself about whether the pandemic was actually going to exacerbate the issues that I already wanted to address or not. And I don't think there's really any doubt that some of those key challenges that learners experience have been really impacted by the pandemic, such as how they feel about risk, their uncertainty about what the future looks like, the instability of learning experiences that they're having in schools and colleges through no fault of teachers or schools and colleges themselves. And also their relationship with their qualifications. You know, what's the point of all of this? There's been so much discussion about all of that. And I imagine that, you know, many learners at one point or another have actually wondered, you know, what is the point of my education in this really unpredictable world that I can't control? And I think that's going to put huge pressure on careers professionals and teachers to kind of create a sense of stability and purpose. So I was quite surprised by the conversations I was having with myself as I was writing it, because of course at the start of the pandemic, when I wrote and finished the book, we had no real idea what the sort of subsequent 15 to 18 months were going to look like. But I think one of the things that perhaps didn't surprise me so much, kind of by contrast, was that existing really good work by researchers like Sarah Jane Blakemore on the kind of neuroscience of teenagers and how their kind of really quite unformed neuroscientific sort of spaces in their heads makes it harder for them to make decisions because they haven't yet got a lot of experience to draw on. I think that demonstrates that in many respects, the issues that we faced for our pre-18 learners before the pandemic are actually surprisingly not that unchanged. They're quite consistent, whether there's a pandemic in play or not. And I think that was certainly what drove me to write the book in the first place and really kind of kept my momentum going as we were going through kind of a long process of actually getting the book out there. And I think given that all the sort of extra statutory guidance and metrics and curriculum and all the other constraints and drivers, particularly on schools and colleges at the moment, those fundamental questions remain. So in a way, I was quite surprised that some of those core things didn't really change at all, such as, why is it hard for learners to make decisions about their future? How can we make that easier for them? How can we show learners the longer term value of their qualifications? How can we make all of these things happen without asking careers professionals and teachers to burn themselves out doing so much more? And so in a way, what was most surprising is that with all the change around us, some of those things remained really constant.
Yeah, in many ways, it's just highlighted those kind of the things that really are at the core and the most important things to get a handle on, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, can you tell me a bit about how the book would be used by, career leaders in schools, or how it might link to their existing practice? You mentioned earlier that it's really building on what they do already.
Absolutely. And that was really important. The whole book is entirely built around the kind of key message that as an already overstretched careers professional or careers leader, or even as a teacher, you don't actually have to do anything new in terms of creating new activities or services, although there are some ideas there in the book of things that you could do if you wanted to do. But instead, what I wanted the book to do was to share some new ways of talking about the activities that are already being delivered and already being created for these career programs in such a way that they can get more impact for learners and actually reach the learners who they are most going to benefit. So one of the things that we know about working in careers generally is that the people who come to career services already know what the benefits are going to be. The people we most need to work with, our learners and students we most need to work with, are probably not the people coming through the door to us. So one of the things that I know that careers leaders are really worried about, particularly if they are being externally evaluated against UK statutory guidance, is that programs have to be really comprehensive and deliver lots of activities across a range of areas. But you can't actually always be sure that even with all the things that you're doing, you're actually making a difference. So I wrote the book in 3 parts, and I start by actually just talking very honestly about the 5 key challenges that young people face and some very specific features of the study, the work and decision-making environment that I think learners find themselves in. And it's not an exhaustive list, but it's very much drawn from the things that I hear that teachers and careers leaders are talking about and what I've seen in my own practice about what the hurdles for learners actually are. I then break the book into 2 parts. One is to talk about careers and one is to talk about employability. So when I talk about the word careers, what I mean is the personal journey that all of us, but in particular our learners, are going on. It's that personal journey to decide who we are, to figure out what's important to us, how we use that understanding to shape our choices about work and about study. I use the analogy of a map for that journey because it's unique and it's bespoke to each of us. And the word employability, which of course is a word that a lot of people don't know about, and I know you're going to push me on that probably. So the section about employability, and I was very clear about defining it because it is quite a misunderstood word. That word is about the luggage, if you like. Employability is the stuff that you pick up along the way during your education and later on during all your working experiences that helps you put your career choices into action. So careers and employability are kind of connected to each other. Careers is your personal journey and employability is the stuff you pick up that helps you put your career choices into action. The problem with the word employability is it's a word that learners don't often hear until after they leave school or college, or even sometimes they don't necessarily hear it until they're in university. But actually understanding what it is a very important part of making good career choices. What do I have? How can that help me identify things that I might enjoy doing or that I might be good at? And I think that's very important in helping learners prepare for the workplace. It's not well understood. So one of the things I really wanted to do in the book was to help careers leaders talk much more effectively about what it is and how to talk to learners about it so that they can use that in a really practical way with learners. And ultimately, I just wanted the book to be very practical. There's so much careers theory out there, but actually in schools and colleges, our colleagues are really doing very practical things in programs of activity and where they need to see clear impact. So the careers section has got 10 different ways to get more value from a program, including how to measure how activities actually gain some impact. And this can be done really easily by just giving students, learners, a 3-stage journey, which I call explore, encounter, embark. And really everything that I then suggest in the book comes as very, very simple idea. So it's a very, very practical book.
I mean, do you have any favorite kind of tips for engaging those students that aren't kind of stepping through the door of the or like the metaphorical door of careers.
Sure. And sometimes it is a metaphorical door as much as an actual door.
Yeah.
So I think we've all worked with people who don't want to think about the future. And I think that's really difficult for learners at the moment. So one of the things I talk about is just the simplicity of always talking about explore, encounter, embark, is just always know where you are. If you're feeling a bit uncertain and feeling a bit clueless about what you want to do, and I think we've all faced that as adults as well as younger people, not quite knowing what we want to do, just recognizing that and just being very comfortable with it, I think is a very good thing. Quite often, I think the way, and I talk about this in the book, is this paralysis of these journey stages that we ask particularly learners pre-18 to go through, this constant decision making about qualifications,
narrowing down.
I think that's really, really hard for learners. And I think just saying, look, it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, giving permission to be uncertain, for me, that's such an important foundation to anything else that you might want to try to achieve through a careers program. Because so much of what we ask learners to do pre-18 is to be decisive and to know what's coming next. But actually, given the kind of neuroscience and the lack of experience to draw on and their uncertainty about risk, and also just the uncertainty about what if I make a wrong decision. So one of the things I talk about in the book is that there's no such thing as a wrong decision. It's just a slightly longer journey to get to that destination. But that might also open up other destinations. So a really simple thing that you can do to get everybody to start thinking about their future, and that's not the same as making a decision about their future. It's just an awareness of where am I on my journey. And I also talk quite a lot about the importance of the learner owning their own definition of success, and let's not just set standards for what we think success should be for our learners, for our pre-18 young people, and also for students. Let them choose, give them the power to decide for themselves what success looks like, because the future of work is so uncertain. The pandemic, the gig economy, the fourth industrial revolution, portfolio careers, 0 hours contracts, there are so many factors now shaping the future of work, all these new careers and things that are going to emerge out of the fourth industrial revolution. That's a lot.
So many jobs that might not even exist yet. So
exactly. Yeah. That's so much to take on if you're 15. So let's just make that really, really easy and just say you're on a journey and it's got 3 stages, and you'll keep going around those 3 stages. As long as you know where you are, that's a great place to start. And I think that's a great door opener, actually, is just to say, where are you? Just let's help you figure out where you are.
Yeah, it feels like they're not sort of being, they don't have to feel guilty because they don't already know the answer, because there's not an answer, as you say. It's more of an ongoing process, and that's closer to the reality of working life as well. I think it is, actually, and one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about employability in the way that I do, and talk about the transferable skills and attributes that are innate to studying different subjects, is that when you start to say, look, it's not about whether you're going to use your knowledge of maths or your knowledge of history, but when we talk about the fact that you're a problem solver, or someone who can think logically, or someone with a forensic attention to detail, or someone who can create a narrative, you take away the risk around a wrong decision and something that you do now not aligning with something in the future, and you create other ways to build connections between where learners are now and all the possible future things they might do. Because most of the fourth industrial revolution is going to be about solving problems. Pretty much every subject has got some aspects of problem defining or problem solving in it. So hey, we're actually preparing all of our learners to enter that future, but we don't talk about it in that way. And I think that's why learners can be quite paralyzed by choice, because they think what I'm doing will either be right or it will be wrong. And what I'm trying to say is there's a very different conversation we can have with learners, which is to say, actually, everything you study is giving you a suite of skills and attributes that will help you open up loads of different career choices. And there's never really then such a thing as a wrong thing. It's just what's right for you. What are you interested in? And I think that makes it easier for teachers and careers professionals to kind of help learners along on that journey. Yeah, and you're right that it also kind of moves the definition of employability away from kind of right and wrong, and sort of very simplistic, and it opens it up, because I think it can really be a bit of a fear-mongering kind of thing, that you're either employable or you're not, but actually that's very much the wrong way to look at it.
I think so. I think, we know that having work experiences really help learners and students and all of us decide if we want to do something. The work experience week is there for a reason. But actually, if you don't know who you are and what you want to do, that can be a very daunting thing. You choose to commit time for a few days or for a week. And there's a whole chapter of, I think the longest part of the book in many respects is the bit about meaningful work experience. Because in fact, where you are on your career journey will really change the value that you can get from looking over somebody's shoulder or trying something out. And I think there is a lot of fear about, gosh, what happens if I don't like it? If you don't like it, let's help you reflect on what doesn't work for you, what skills you aren't using that you might want to use, where the gaps are for you, and help you understand how to use that information. Careers leaders, careers professionals, and even teachers are really good at that reflective process. And part of the book is about how to have conversations with learners about these different things. So, it was very important to me to find ways to constantly keep that conversation alive and take some of that fear away, actually.
Yeah, because you're right. It's such an exciting job helping people at the start of their sort of professional career and making choices, but also highlighting that it's just the start, and then they've got a lot of exciting different pathways ahead of them. So yeah, definitely something to be celebrated in the book.
And I think also there's some fear about, if you make a career choice, you're somehow committing for the next 50 years. You're not. You're committing.
Yeah, definitely not the case nowadays.
No, you're just committing to your next step. And I think if you understand that each step opens up a range of choices, and you know how to look at what you're doing and what you're studying in relation to those choices, then that's all you need to be able to do. And that's really, in a sense, what the kind of explore and encounter phases are for, is, okay, who am I? What am I doing? What does it open up? What does it look like? And then embark is about, okay, that's about how I then make that choice to move into that. But I can always see it as a sort of a selection of tree branches that open up and connect and overlap with other things. And I think that's how we can, again, take some of that fear out of it, but also recognize that you're not committing for the rest of your life to a career choice. That just isn't in the narrative anymore. You're just taking your next step. And I think we can start to talk to especially pre-18 learners about, it's just the next step. And as long as you know who you are, what you're getting out of what you're doing, and you know how that can help you make choices, that's where we should be focusing our effort, I think, as careers professionals and careers leaders, and as teachers too, actually.
And I think that you're right in some ways, that the image of the tree is perhaps nicer than kind of the path, because a path makes it sound like there's a destination you have to get to, but actually with the tree it's just about kind of growing and continuing to expand. So quite a nice way to think about it.
I think so, and those sort of lots of different routes to get to the same place. So an analogy I use a lot is, you can get from London to Edinburgh in a straight line, but also there are some quite interesting diversions that you can take. You'll still get to Edinburgh, or you might end up somewhere else, and that's okay. Yeah,
and you'll see a lot of interesting places along the way.
Absolutely. And all of those experiences will help you think about what you like and what you don't like. And sometimes some of our best decisions are framed by a negative. I never want to do that again. That was awful. My work experience at school really made me very clear that I was never going to do that again. And it was set up for me by someone who thought that they knew me and knew what was important to me. And within about 3 hours, I just thought, this is awful.
Yeah.
And I'm a great example of someone who has had a very fluid career and taken the doors that opened in front of me. And I credit that to having just a strong sense of self-awareness. That's what we want to build, I think, for learners and for students, is a really strong sense of who am I and what's important to me today, and how has what I got around me, how can that help me?
Yeah, so they can make a kind of confident, informed choice. Even if you say it's informed by what they don't want to do, that's still very helpful. Absolutely. In the spectrum of choice. Yeah. So, I mean, is there any final things that you want to say about the book, or kind of bits that you want to celebrate that you wrote?
I think I would love to see, and you don't have to use explore, encounter, embark, but I would love to see careers leaders feel more confident in what they're already doing as a result of maybe putting a bit of a framework around what they're doing. I think whether you're evaluated against the statutory guidance in the UK or not, and this book has been written for a global audience, it's not just about the UK. I talk about how the activities in the book can support the statutory guidance benchmarks, but this book has been written for anybody who is helping a pre-18 learner. And indeed, there's some stuff in here that you could use in a university setting, because a lot of it has been tried and tested also in a university setting. But I think what I would encourage people to do is is own the quality of what you're already doing. Don't feel that just because you're being evaluated on it, that it's good or bad. If you're trying to help learners understand themselves better and make good decisions about their next step, then you're probably doing a great job. And I'd like to celebrate that actually, as much as anything, is to really recognize the huge commitment and energy. I was doing some work with a school in Southeast London earlier in the year. And the careers leader was somebody who was already doing a full-time teaching job. He was massively overwhelmed in a very challenged school by all sorts of factors that they couldn't control. And we had a group of other teachers in the room, and the passion and the commitment to the journey of their learners was just so humbling. It blew me away. And I know that's replicated everywhere. So what I hope is that people will feel that what this book does is to legitimize what they're already doing, but to help them get more impact and value from it. And that's really what I'd like to celebrate, is that this book helps people really recognize and get more value from what they do. So thank you, careers leaders, careers professionals, and teachers everywhere. That's my message, really.
I mean, that's such a nice note to end on. I feel, as you said, celebrating all the amazing work that's already happened, and how the book can help it sort of just put the cherry on top.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Kate. It's been really nice to chat and just share some of the stuff that the book's about.
Thank you very much. And thank you for publishing my book. And I hope that it's really helpful to people.
Thanks.